Today, I'm joined by Scrum.org professional Scrum trainer Duncan Maddox, and we are taking a look at the Daily Scrum and how your teams can use it to their best advantage. Let's get into the video. Okay, so here we are again, and we're talking about the Daily Scrum. So tell us, Duncan, what is the Daily Scrum?
So the Daily Scrum is the development team's opportunity to inspect and adapt their plan for the sprint. 15 minutes every day, same time, same place, by the development team, for the development team. That's it.
That's it. And why? Why do we do this? Why is this so super important?
That's a great question. Because we're working in this complex space that we know that we can't perfectly plan. We can't perfectly plan 6 months ahead, but probably we can't perfectly plan for the sprint. So the development team will come up with their best plan out of the sprint planning session, but they'll want to inspect and adapt that plan as they go on throughout the sprint. And this must be your experience that this is the most valuable event in the Scrum framework. As Jess Sutherland says, I'm stealing it. As Jess Sutherland says, the Daily Scrum is the heartbeat of Scrum.
I definitely find that it's one of the places where collaboration happens the most. It's where the most chat amongst the team happens when it's going well. And it gives us the most feedback about how the team are doing towards achieving the sprint goal. So I know what you mean. It can be the most useful event.
So a lot of, I think we've talked about this before, a lot of teams say that they're doing Scrum, and when you ask exactly what they're doing, they're basically just doing 15-minute stand-ups every day. They're doing the Daily Scrum every day. A lot of people see that as Scrum because it's so synonymous, so notorious, if you like.
It's eponymous. It's eponymously titled.
Nice.
But of course, we can do the Daily Scrum without doing Scrum. Kanban, for example, would have a 15-minute stand-up every day. That doesn't mean we're doing this inspect and adapt iterative process simply by having a 15-minute Scrum every day.
The aim of this event is that the team are owning their plan for the sprint. And this is helping the team be accountable. This is helping the team focus on making sure they accomplish the sprint goal. And maybe some teams lose sight of that just through jumping through the hoops and making sure the event happens, instead of focusing on the fact that this is a replanning event, if you like.
That focus on the sprint goal can be really important too. The three questions that a lot of teams use and can be really, really useful are really designed to focus on the sprint goal. What did I do yesterday to help the team achieve the sprint goal? What do I plan to do today to help the team achieve the sprint goal? Do I see any impediments to the team achieving the sprint goal?
I'm impressed that you got all of that out word perfect. Yeah.
And that brings the focus that what we're doing is planning to achieve the sprint goal.
Sprint goal, yeah.
The dev team are planning on how to reach that goal. They're not simply planning their work for the next 24 hours. It's a bit more forward thinking than that. However, the way to achieve the sprint goal is to plan in small short-term increments.
I think the three questions sometimes work for teams, sometimes don't work for teams. But a lot of teams still think that that's the only way that you can have your stand-up, your Daily Scrum.
So in great daily scrums that you've seen, what have the teams been doing? How have they mixed it up and really achieved the benefit of this event?
So what I've seen work best in my experience is just where the teams start off saying, are we still committed to the sprint goal? Do we still think this is going to happen? Are we still going to achieve this? And if they start off all saying that they're still committed, they still think it's achievable, or raising possible objections, problems, I think that's a great way of focusing on that bigger picture for the sprint. And then just walking the board, you know, how are we doing with each of the items? And that makes the conversation a little bit more organic.
Yeah, I think using the sprint goal to guide that discussion as an anchor point around what the team discuss, it is really beneficial. It keeps them focused in the same direction.
Yeah, it almost sounds like this chat is about the sprint goal rather than the Daily Scrum.
Yeah.
So
The daily scrum, the sprint goal is really relevant to the daily scrum. It really is. The heart of the daily scrum is the sprint goal.
The heart of the heartbeat. This is an event for the development team, by the development team. Whereas I think a lot of scrum masters maybe think that they own this event, or at least are responsible for running it in some way.
I think that the scrum master can really help the development team by letting them run their own scrum, by not getting involved too much, by not dictating the structure. We'll obviously never dictate anything, but being a bit hands-off with the daily scrum and letting the dev team use it to their own advantage, assuming they understand its purpose, assuming they understand how to make that happen.
Yeah. The scrum master's responsibility is to make sure the team see the value in the daily scrum, make sure they stick to the time box, make sure that they're having this daily scrum and that it's effective. But once that's happening, if the scrum master feels that he's required to run it, Jeff Watts came up with a great tip, which was just, as a scrum master, go and make a cup of coffee instead of attending the daily scrum, and see what your team do. See if they do self-organize, or whether you've made the team a little bit more dependent on you than you'd like.
It's a great way to judge the self-organization of a team. Do they just have their daily scrum? Do they just get up and do it? That's a great measure of how self-organizing the team are.
What about this little phrase in the Scrum Guide, same time, same place, to reduce complexity?
We're always trying to minimize waste. We're always trying to make things as simple and route one as possible. And people like routines. They like this habit. I think it's really beneficial to say the team just stands up and goes there. The great teams that I've seen stand up at 2 minutes to 10 or whatever in the morning, and they all go around the borders and just do it. And it's that routine, it's that same place, same time, every day, to reduce complexity, encourages that behavior. And as a result of encouraging the behavior, you get the benefits of that behavior.
I'm just thinking of an example in the last team I was working with. When I introduced the idea of the daily scrum, I got a lot of pushback at first. We don't have time for your silly 15-minute meeting. We're too busy working. But once they saw the value of it, the team actually opted to have 2 daily scrums, another daily scrum.
Another daily scrum.
Another daily scrum. So adding a second daily scrum after lunch, because they saw this 15-minute event as the most valuable time of the day, because it really got the entire team pulling together, pulling in the same direction.
And if we have 2 daily scrums, are we still doing Scrum?
We're adding to the Scrum framework. The team's inspecting and adapting and making Scrum work for them. They're doing Scrum and rather than Scrum but. So I'm going to say yes.
And these teams probably felt, the teams who got the most value from the Scrum probably felt a sense of ownership of the Scrum. They had a sense of purpose. They had a reason to do it. And they were able to inspect and adapt the way they do it as well, to give them this buy-in to, this is our time. This is our opportunity to give us the best chance of succeeding.
So, daily scrum, what's it all about?
So I think the daily scrum is all about the planning. It's not about the plan. It's for the teams to do the planning, to go through that activity and come up with a plan for the next 24 hours, but also to be prepared to throw away that plan. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. Mike Tyson says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that is very true, but the value is in the planning. And that, for me, I think that's what the daily scrum is all about. Having that planning, having that catch up, having that collaboration, so that we're all on the page of where we are and how we're going to get to the sprint goal.
Yeah, I can't believe you stole my Mike Tyson quote. So for my money, the team need to remember that it's an inspect and adapt event. So they're looking at the plan and they're checking in. Does this plan need to be updated? Have we learned anything new? Do we need to replan a little bit to still achieve that sprint goal?
So there we go, the daily scrum, the heartbeat of Scrum, and all of that good stuff. If you found this video useful, please go ahead and click that little like button. Maybe have a think about subscribing to the channel. We have practical tips for making Scrum work for you, and we will see you on the next one.